What's in the bag, Jane? You said Officer Radner only got the promotion because he had a dick. Well, that's not an issue anymore.
Look, I was raised to never call women crazy, but after this episode, I think we can all admit that Jane is crazy as hell. Not only is she crazy, but she's unstable, unpredictable, unhinged, and we find out she was born to be a killer. From birth, she's been burdened to fulfill this life of death and suffering, all prophecies by the unknown entity as Alex. This episode poses the question if you were always evil or if the circumstances made you that way. We are back breaking down this 6th episode of Season 2 of Paradise. In this episode, we find out why Jane is the way she is and why you never want to be on her bad side. Xavier learns that Gary has always had one thing in common with him, and that's taking care of Terry. Meanwhile, Sinatra sets up a plan to meet Link as Jeremy and Robertson make their escape, and we see Gabby makes a promise to take down her old friend. Now, this is our very first episode this season where all the storylines from the bunker and what's going on outside the bunker and we get a flashback takes place. So we got a lot to cover in this episode. So with all that being said, full spoilers ahead. We flash back to May 29th, 1997, back when the world was simpler. And nowhere was more 90s than a cluttered basement in a Circuit City, RIP. Amongst the monitors and all the old tech, something strange happens. One of the employees, a man named Don, gets an email and the sender is an Alex Q. Let's say the Q stands for quantum. The subject line reads, on June 6, 12:01 a.m., a killer will be born. And the body of the email is even weirder. It says she can be stopped when it matters if you deliver a message to her. Now, Don is confused as anyone would be. From here, his beeper goes off with the same message, his landline rings with the same message, then he gets an instant messenger ping, and it's over and over again, and it's coming from Alex Q, and it's everywhere. Now, immediately, my mind goes to, who is Don, and why did Alex Q choose Don? Why did Alex Q wait to a full week before this killer is born? Is Don related to someone we know within the show, or is he just some random guy part of this larger plan? More importantly, who is Alex Q? Also, how would Alex Q know about the birth of this killer, who would be revealed later on in a bit? Now, to answer my own questions, for those that have been following my theory videos after each week's breakdown, this confirms what we've all kind of suspected. Alex Q is the same Alex Sinatra currently has in her possession. It's becoming more and more clear that maybe Alex is some form of a quantum technology machine that can predict or perhaps even dictate the future. This scene all but confirms that Alex's reach extends decades into the past. Now, I could talk about this scene forever, but we'll dive deeper into this later in the week with my theory video. But what if someone from the future sent those messages? Remember back in episode 3, we talked about the advanced wave function superposition and quantum entanglement and what it was. And for a refresher, basically it's particles existing in two different states at the exact same time. So what if Xavier, Sinatra, Robinson, or Presley, or Sinatra's daughter sent that message, or in a surprise twist, what if it was Jane? What if she herself sent the message to her past self and she set this message to kind of set her on this course? She knows what it means, she knows how it shaped her, and she's the only one that can stop her. Now we flash forward to a week later, June 6, 1997. We're in a hospital, but there's no joy here. We find a woman in labor, but she's all alone, no partner, no family or friends, just her screaming to get the baby out of her. By the next morning, we see the baby is born and it is crying, reaching out for some type of maternal warmth, but the mother, she's just a ghost. She just lays there with a look of profound sadness and honestly, a look of disappointment. It was like she already knew that her child is a lost cause. Now, as she's discharged and walks out of the hospital, we find Don is outside waiting for her. He looks kind of terrified and he looks like he hasn't slept in over a week, and you notice he's wearing his same work outfit. He approaches her and repeats the exact same message Alex Q sent him just a week before about the baby being a killer, and the baby is revealed to be Jane.
Holy shit, it's her. Listen to me. She's a killer.
Security!
No, but she will be, but she can be stopped.
Sir!
She can be stopped when it matters.
Security!
I have a message for that baby. I have a message for that little girl. She can be stopped.
She can be stopped when it matters, not now, not when she's 5, but when it matters. Now, to me, this implies a particular point in time, let's call it a fixed point, that Alex Q is waiting for. But who will be the one to stop her, and what is the point in which it'll matter when she needs to be stopped? Let's break down the importance of this scene. This interaction between Don and Jane's mother is the catalyst. By delivering that message, Don basically cursed Jane. He planted the seed in her mother's mind that her daughter was a monster before she even knew her name. Think about the environment Jane grew up in because of this one message. If your mother looks at you every day and sees a killer because a stranger at a hospital told her so, do you ever really have a chance to be anything else? To me, this is the ultimate nature versus nurture conversation, but the extreme version of this in a nightmare scenario. This brings us to the core theme of this episode, predeterminism. We see Jane now in the present, and she is exactly what the message said she would be. She's a force of death and destruction. But as we watch her path throughout this episode, I want to ask you all this question. Did you feel bad for Jane? Is she a cold-hearted villain, or is she a victim of consequences that was engineered before she was even born? If Alice Q is a quantum computer that can see the future, was Jane always gonna be a killer, or did Alice Q make her one by sending Don to that hospital? Was there ever a way to break this outcome, or are these characters just lines of code in a program Alice Q has already finished writing? Again, I can't help but to think ahead, but who will be the one to stop Jane? And will that person be acting out of free will, or are they just another pawn of Alice Q? Flash forward to the present, or at least how we perceive to be the present, as we see Xavier explaining his plans to Gary. Now, Gary's only job is to do absolutely nothing but to watch out for Xavier as he sets his explosives, which aren't meant to hurt anyone, but they are meant to pose a threat. But if anyone gets in his way, he's willing to break some necks. Meanwhile, back at the bunker, we see Robinson being put in the underground prison, and Sinatra sees Link and his group are outside. Now this brings us to Sinatra's house, where Jane arrives to pick her up for a meeting, and she runs into Sinatra's security. Jane gives them a very clear "don't F with me or you'll find out" warning, which at this point, let's be honest, it's probably good advice when you're dealing with her. Now inside, Jane is playing strategist. She tells Sinatra about the unwanted guests outside and suggests a power move by arriving to the meeting late to re-establish her dominance. Sinatra loves it, she compliments Jane, and you can see how much that means to her. Jane views Sinatra as a mentor, maybe even a mother figure, and she thrives that approval. But as we're about to see, Jane's history with mothers is very complicated. Now before they leave, Sinatra's daughter is worried about her mom returning to work so quickly. Sinatra gives her a hug and a kiss, promising she's fine. It's a sweet moment, but for Jane, it's a trigger. It sparks a flashback to when Jane was maybe around 9 or 10 years old. In this flashback, we find a young Jane having a tea party. She's alone and she's talking to her imaginary friend as her mother walks in and immediately shuts it down, telling her that she's way too old for that, and she demands that she goes downstairs to eat her dinner. Now, a couple things to unpack here. I'm not sure if this is her mother's house or her boyfriend's house that we see in this scene, but if it is her mother's, they seem to have a wealthy lifestyle based on the decor of the living room, and they have a private sauna in their backyard. Now, questions I have after seeing this moment is, does Jane come from money? Again, we saw her mother didn't have anyone by her side while having Jane. Again, no family, no friends. Where is Jane's father? As Jane watches her mother and her mother's boyfriend head into the sauna, her imaginary friend starts talking to her about doing something. Jane watches them from outside the glass with this creepy look as she walks over to the door and she locks them inside and cranks up the heat. Now they begin to panic and her mom starts screaming and threatening her that she's going to be in very big trouble if she doesn't let them out. Now Jane just sits there smirking, and remembering that she's not a killer right now, she eventually lets them out. She blames her imaginary friend, but her mother isn't having it. She throws Jane into the sauna and she locks her in, and she tells Jane that that lunatic at the hospital was right. Jane is the worst thing that's ever happened to her. Now this would be the last of the Kid Jane scenes that we see in this episode, so what did we learn here? 1, her mom hated her. 2, she had an imaginary friend who told her to do bad things, and again, she was aware that someone told her mom that she would grow up to be evil. Now, you would have to imagine her childhood was filled with trauma and pain and neglect from her mother, or maybe when she got old enough, Jane eventually got rid of her own mom. I do wonder if we'll ever revisit her childhood again, because it is a large gap of time from when we see this scene to when she's training in the CIA, so I wonder if we'll see this in maybe a future episode this season or maybe next season. Now back in the present, we get this interesting moment of irony. Before Jane and Sinatra leave, Sinatra's daughter makes Jane promise to never let anything happen to her mother. Jane looks her in the eye and promises. Now, think about this for a second. Jane is the entire reason Sinatra is walking with a cane and just woke up from a months-long coma. The person protecting her is the person who almost killed her. It's a reminder of Jane's capacity for being a psychological liar. Now let's catch up what was going on with Gabriella in this episode. She's still running her own investigation after planting that bug in Sinatra's office back in episode 3, as she's basically obsessed with the one name of this episode, which is Alex. We see Gabriella combs through her logs and finds that Alex was mentioned 4 times in her sessions with Sinatra. The first 2 were just casual, harmless name drops, but then we come across a third one, which is where Sinatra mentions something terrible's happening, and she crossed the line and says that Alex is their only chance.
I crossed the line no person should cross, but Alex is our only chance, and I'm not following. I'm afraid of the person I'm becoming, Gabby. I'm afraid of the person I'm going to have to be in order to save them.
Now, this is probably referencing to the time that Sinatra hired Billy to kill the developer. That was the moment that Samantha began her transformation, like Jane in the flashbacks, into Sinatra. But this also reinforces how vital Alex is in the entire operation. This being the second time Gabriella has heard Alex frame as a key to everything. Now at the Collins' house, we see Presley is fed up with the adults protecting her and not standing up for those who have been taken against their will, as she is just tired of being told that basically they have to wait for their father for them to do anything. We see that she sets off on her own to get answers for the rest of this episode. Now at the meeting, Sinatra tells the billionaires that Robertson is in custody, as Jane follows up by telling them that Robertson acted under Xavier's orders to take down those in power of the bunker. One of the billionaires voices concerns that the community will be left in fear with now 2 dead presidents, but Sinatra assures them that this won't be their primary worry for long. She shows the billionaires Lincoln and his crew are outside the doors. Sinatra fills them in on her intel so far, that being that they've been outside for the last 2 days, they're armed, and they have grown in size since they first arrived. She has a plan, but she wants to do things differently this time around, and she wants a collective decision and acting on her plan, which they all agree to do so, as Gabriella walks out of the room. Now back in the prison, Jeremy continues his pursuit to getting Anders to helping him breaking the doors down, but first, they must figure out a way to escape from this prison. Anders feels his original sin has led him to being in prison, that being a reference to his involvement with the original construction workers in Trent in the season 1 finale. He agrees to help Jeremy by telling him there's a way out, as Robertson can see that they're scheming. I'll be real with you all, I thought this plot point felt a bit slow in this episode, and it didn't really move the needle for me. However, the underlying thread connecting Jeremy and Robertson through their shared history with Cal remains interesting, and I hope there's a good payoff at the end of the day. Back in Sinatra's office, she invites Jane to discuss their past events. Sinatra confesses that Jane terrifies her, but with her closest security guards dead and half of the Secret Service missing, Jane's all she's got. She's the only one left in the bunker who knows her secrets. But before Sinatra can fully trust her, she'll need to know what Jane meant back when she shot her and said that she's no use to her dead. Jane explains herself, she's a killer, she's a weapon, she's always been this. Her purpose is simple. People she respects aim her and she executes for them. To serve that purpose, she needs people like Sinatra. Now, Sinatra tells her plan to handle the outside guest situation, and she needs Jane to negotiate and deliver her terms. Again, aim and execute. Now, this triggers a flashback to 10 years earlier to finding Jane, or Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, in this red room as she's training for the CIA to become a field agent. We see that this is a much greener, less refined version of a killer she'll later become. Now, her superior named Stacy, played by Ryan Michelle Bathay, who, fun fact, is the real-life wife of Xavier Collins himself, Sterling K. Brown, and also an actress in her own right and the host of the Paradise podcast. We see that she takes a keen interest in young Jane, and she calls her into her office. Jane believes she's ready for the field, but Stacy informs her about what's holding her back from getting to the field. While Jane's intelligence scores are off the charts, her psychiatric evaluation says a different story. Jane shares how she had a rough childhood because of an incident that framed her mother into treating her poorly, and she also hears voices in her head sometimes. Stacy doesn't want her to use these as excuses as she teaches her an exercise. It's a mental discipline designed to tap into a deeper part of your mind, allowing her to focus like never before, and it also will help her silence these voices. This relationship would become one that will change Jane forever, as Stacy had no idea that teaching Jane this would make her even more dangerous than ever before. As time passes, we witness Jane training, perfecting the techniques Stacy taught her as she's transforming into an increasingly skilled agent. Now, we eventually see that she passes her field test after fully committing into Stacy's guidance. Now, I did find the misogynistic undertones in Jane's backstory felt a bit on the nose in my opinion, but it is still very fascinating to witness the genesis of Jane's unexpected killer instinct. Now, we see this relationship between Jane and Stacy has grown. We see them sharing dinner at Stacy's home as Jane is filled with excitement after passing her field test. Now, Stacy shares that she lost out on a well-deserved promotion to this less qualified male agent simply because he was a man. Again, I found this particular narrative choice felt a bit lazy in its execution. It just didn't feel as nuanced as some of the more complex themes that this show tends to tackle. Now, Jane asks Stacy why she chose her to take her under her wing.
Because I think you're incredibly special, Jane. And I'm incredibly sad that no one has ever told you.
That right there compliments genuine appreciation from those she respects or looks up to resonates deeply within Jane. Having never received this kind of affirmation from her own mother, Stacy became a surrogate mother, or more or less just a very close friend to her. Someone Jane would do anything for. As we're about to find out, Jane is about to take it upon herself to make things better for Stacy, not getting that promotion that she thought she deserved. It's also in this scene that we get the backstory of Jane's obsession with the Nintendo Wii. Stacy introduced her to them and they would play it together, and it obviously was a bonding experience for Jane and a core memory for her. Again, this is something I would imagine her and her mother never played any games together and probably never had a true bonding moment together like this. This was a prime example of showing us like that kid-like side that we've seen of Jane throughout these first 2 seasons. There's this yearning there for Jane for just simple affection and affirmation, and explaining why those rare compliments mean so much to this dangerous woman that she's going to become. Also, I have to mention the Wii reveal makes me reconsider her relationship with Billy. I always thought that her wanting the Wii at the end of season 1 was like her way of like remembering Billy. That was something they did together, but obviously that wasn't the case. So now I'm just wondering, did she ever really love Billy? Now, back at the bunker, we see Presley talking to Sinatra's daughter. Presley starts putting the pressure on her to start digging into who her mother really is. Meanwhile, Gabby meets with Robertson about Sinatra's ties with Alex Q. Robertson has officially stopped caring and just wants to basically give up and accept being in prison because there's no beating Sinatra. The system is built against her. Now, despite Robertson waving the white flag, Gabby manages to get something out of her, and that's her telling her that she needs to keep her eyes on Jane because she's the one behind the deaths of Billy and Bane. Look, I love me some Robertson, but I'm going to be honest with you all, I wasn't a fan of her not giving a damn attitude in this episode because I just feel like her performance was just a little bit too over the top for me. Now, side note, does anyone else feel like the punishment didn't fit the crime for Robertson? Even in a bunker, you would think that a woman who has killed the president, or again, allegedly killed the president, would be in some like high security hole, not just hanging out in the common area. Now, as I digress, while that's happening, we see Jane stepping outside for the first time in 3 years to meet Link and the others, as Jane uses her super focused skills to key in on how she's going to approach them. We watch as she puts her hair down and she hands over the terms, but immediately she takes Urkel's gun and demands to speak with the cutie with the cards. Now, this being her first time meeting Link, which unfortunately tosses out my theory about them being siblings. It was fun while it lasted. Now, Link and Jane negotiate that he'll be able to bring in 5 unarmed men to meet with Sinatra, and can't forget about the slice of pie as well. Now, I could be 100% wrong on this, but that slice of apple pie could have a deeper meaning. I just get this feeling that they have maybe known of each other or possibly have met each other at some point. Again, I'm not saying they're siblings anymore, but I just think about the apple pie being similar to the line of like what we found out what it meant to giving someone a breath mint. What do you all think? Have Jane and Link met before? Remember, maybe she knows of him because of her knowing Sinatra's past and her secrets and knowing that she had the developer killed, and obviously that ties into Alex. And obviously we know Link is tied to the developer and Alex. And on the opposite side, Link knows of Alex, so maybe he knows that Jane message about being a killer and being stopped. Maybe the apple pie has something to do with that message as well. Now, when Jane returns, Sinatra plays her like a fiddle. She knows exactly how to feed Jane's ego and compliments her, and she even rewards her. She gives Jane a Nintendo Switch, and seeing Jane, this cold-hearted killer, light up like a kid on Christmas was both hilarious and terrifying at the same time. She even gloats to Sinatra's daughter to how cool her mom is. As Jane leaves, we see Sinatra's daughter isn't here to talk about how cool she is. Instead, she wants to know why she hasn't named Sinatra and if she had anything to do with the missing people. Now, after Sinatra pleased her little assassin, she tells her daughter that the name is just a code name and she'll look into what's happening with the people that's gone missing in the bunker. It was really fun watching this scene because in my eyes, we're basically watching Sinatra playing a mother to both of these characters. Now back in the prison, we see Robinson keeps up with her last day of senior year high school vibes and approaches Jeremy about noticing his planned escape. She brings up Cal, and Jeremy immediately ends the conversation by calling her a side piece as he walks away. Now, them bringing up Cal made me wonder, will we ever see what happened to Jeremy's mom? Like, seriously, where is she? Also, I'm shocked that Kane, Jeremy's grandfather, and again, his mother haven't gotten him out of prison yet. Now, as we come to a close of this episode, we flash back one last time to Jane paying a visit to the agent who took Stacy's promotion. She kindly requests that he step down from his promotion, and he responds by telling her to get off his porch and shutting the door in her face. Cut to Sunday dinner at Stacy's, who forgot because she was shaken up by the news that the officer was in surgery after getting attacked. Jane completely ignores the news, and she asks if that means that she now has a promotion now that he's essentially out of the picture. Now, you can see the look on Stacy's face that she found it odd that Jane didn't have any follow-up questions to what happened to that officer, as we get the moment of what's in the bag in a move straight out of Seven the movie or out of a Lorraine Bobbitt documentary. Jane reveals she took care of the problem by removing the one thing that officer had that Stacy didn't. Yes, that's right. If you didn't get the subtext, she cut off his penis. Yeah, remember when I asked you all if you felt bad about crazy ass Jane? How do you feel about her now? I'm not gonna lie, that moment caught me by surprise. I actually was like shocked by that reveal. I didn't know the show would go to that level, but I will say, I wouldn't be mad at Xavier if he had Jane take care of Gary that same way after what Gary's about to do to Xavier here in a little bit. Now, back in Sinatra's office, we see Jane fixing her hair like Sinatra and speaking like her and giving herself a compliment in Sinatra's voice. Again, this woman is one piece of work. Meanwhile, we see Gabriella walks in, and this being the first time they're sharing their first one-on-one scene together. Gabriella cuts to the chase and mentions what Jane has done, as Jane responds by saying, well, you know what I'm capable of. Is it best that you be confronting me right now? Gabriella tells her that things won't end well between her and Sinatra and that she will be coming for Sinatra, as Jane tells her that if she wants to come for Sinatra, she has to go through her first. We see Sinatra's daughter messes Presley that she will help find the people in the prison. Speaking of, we see Anders and Jeremy making their escape and they end up getting caught, but Robinson helps them by knocking out the guard and they all escape together. Our last scene is back at the train as Xavier sets up the explosives. As they're all set, X tells Gary that if he doesn't make it, make sure that he finds Terry and tells her what he did to get to this point to save her, and he wants Gary to take care of her as he looks at the picture that she took one last time. It's here Gary shows his true colors as he tells X that it's all he ever wanted to do, which is take care of Terry, as Xavier notices Gary staring at Terry in that same picture as Gary reverses the detonation and the explosive goes off as we watch X tosses the bag. X tosses the bag just in time, but he gets all of the people near the train's attention. Now we see X is disoriented. He's kind of confused on where he is because of the aftermath of the explosion. As we look in the crowd, we see a person kind of rushing through, saying his name, and it is his soulmate, the mother of his children, his wife, his best friend, Terry, or is it? I say that because remember, X had a massive head injury in episode 2 and he just got rocked by an explosion. Is Terry maybe a hallucination? Is she actually there, or is Xavier's brain just giving him one more beautiful lie before he fades out? Now, the question remains, what do you do with Gary now? Will he simply give himself up when Terry and X are reunited together again? I will be honest, I do think Terry is in that scene, but I just want to play devil's advocate that maybe she isn't. But again, assuming that she is in the scene, what the hell is Gary going to do now? Again, is he just going to turn himself in, or will he escape and he'll be like this lingering threat between the next 2 episodes and possibly in season 3? What about Jane? Is there more to her backstory? What happened to Don? What happened to her mother? What happened to Stacy? How do you go from chopping off a senior officer manhood to protecting the president in the bunker? Also, I forgot to mention, her chopping off that senior's manhood was also the thing that we saw Robinson find in her file back in episode 3. Now, this episode makes me think that maybe Sinatra has always had her eye on Jane because she is obviously aware of Alex, and maybe Alex is giving her that same message and showing how important Jane is to this whole situation. Other questions that come to mind is, what will come of Jeremy and Anders and Robertson and Presley and Sinatra's daughter? Will them opening the doors have any ties to Link and his group? Speaking of Link, what terms will he and Sinatra come to when they first meet? Man, overall, I gotta say, this may be my personal favorite episode of the season so far because we have all of the stories finally coming together. Now, despite the shortcomings from the prison stuff, which I wasn't the biggest fan of this week, but I thought the Jane deep dive was excellent. The birth of a killer, the ties into her family and Alex Q and her relationship with Stacy, all that stuff was just excellent to me. Then you add in Sinatra's mind games, Gabriella's investigation, and that ending with a possible reunion between X and Terry. Yeah, this was one hell of an episode of television. With that said, this will conclude my breakdown of episode 6 of season 2 of Paradise. Now, friendly reminder, after each episode, I make these separate videos focusing on theories and predictions, and that's where you all come into play. If you all want your theories to be included, here's how you do it. Number 1, leave them in the comments below, and above your theory, say something like, please consider my theory to be shared. Second option is I'll be creating a community post on my YouTube channel, so I'll probably put that out on Monday or maybe Tuesday. That post will be like a designated spot where you can put your theories and predictions that may be included in that theory video for that week. With that said, thank you all for watching or listening to this week's breakdown. If you all have made it to the end of the breakdown, congratulations, you are the real ones, you're the MVPs. Do me a favor, put in the comments right now, #JaneIsInsane. Now, if you all are watching this via YouTube, please consider liking this video, hyping up this video, sharing this video to anyone and everyone you know that loves talking about this show, but also sharing your thoughts about this episode in the comments below, and consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel today. If you are listening to this via podcast, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or wherever you all get your podcasts from, please leave your thoughts about this episode in the comments below. Consider following the podcast, and I would love if you all can give my podcast a 5-star review. We'll be back later this week with our theory video. In the meantime, remember, you all are awesome, stay safe, and more importantly, don't underestimate anyone by the name of Jane moving forward for the rest of your life. All right, y'all, I'll see you again soon.